Thanks for joining me. As Christians, we want to live a life pleasing to God because we taught in the Bible that God is pure and he does not want to have sin in his presence because he's holy. And because we're children of God, we want to please him. And in the New Testament epistle of Colossians, in chapter 3 and verse 5, we read, "Therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth," and then it lists the sins, because sins, they all begin in the heart. If we want to be pure, that's where it all begins. That's where we need to win the battle. And a preacher from a bygone generation called F.B. Meyer says, no man suddenly becomes base. It's all a process. Sins, they begin inside, so that's why we're told to mortify the deeds of the flesh, because when you sow a thought, there's a saying, sow a thought, reap an action, sow an action, reap habit, sow a habit, reap an eternity. We like to please God. And in my devotion today for February the 22nd, this was by a writer called John Owen from his works, chapter 6, verses 9 to 14. John Owen writes on Colossians 3 verse 4 when it says, "Put to death therefore what is earthly in you." It says, "Do you mortify?" It's literally put to death. "Do you make it your daily work? Do you take a day off from this work? Always be killing sin, or it will be killing you. We must strike it as an enemy until it ceases living. Sin is labouring to bring forth the deeds of the flesh. When sin lets us alone, we may let sin alone." So he's being ironic there. Sin never leaves us alone. Sin is active when it seems to be the most quiet, and its waters are often deep when they are calm. Sin is always acting, conceiving, seducing, and tempting. There is not a day but sin foils or is foiled. There is no safety but in a constant warfare from sin's perplexing rebellion. Sin will not only be striving, acting, rebelling, troubling, and disquieting, if not continually mortified. It will also bring forth great cursed, scandalous, and soul-destroying sins. Galatians 5:19 to 20. And it says, "When sin rises to tempt, it always seeks to express itself in the extreme. Every unclean thought would be adultery if it could. Every covetous desire would be oppression, and every thought of unbelief would be atheism. It is like the grave that is never satisfied. Sin's advance blinds the soul from seeing its drift from God. The soul becomes indifferent to sin, and it continues to grow. The growth of sin has no boundaries but the utter denial of God and opposition to him. Sin proceeds higher by degrees. It hardens the heart as it advances. Mortification, that is putting to death, withers the root and strikes at the head of sin every hour. The best saints in the world are in danger of a fall if found negligent in this important duty. Negligence of this duty decays the inner man instead of renewing him. It is our duty to be bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God." That says in 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 1. Bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God, and every day to be growing in grace. Well, that's 1 Peter 2:2, where it says, as newborn babes, desire or thirst the spiritual milk of the word, that you may grow thereby, and seeking to be renewed in the inner nature day by day. 2 Corinthians 4:16. So the battle begins in the heart, Christian. I exhort you, join me, let us seek to please our Heavenly Father. We'll be putting to death the deeds of the flesh, otherwise they'll be killing us. Sins, the battle begins in the heart or with our thoughts, so we've got to, unseen to the other eyes, we've got to bring them before God, pray to him, help us to put to death those deeds, because we promised in Hebrews 4, it says that we don't have a high priest who's unable to sympathise with our weakness, but because he's become a man, he's become a human being, he's able to sympathise with us because he was tempted in all points as we are, and yet without sin. Let's put to death the deeds of the flesh, sins, otherwise sins will be killing us. Thanks for joining me. God bless. Bye.